So, The Boys Season 5, i.e. the whole finale of The Boys, has just ended. A couple days off of it, but regardless, Amazon, Sony, grouping together to make a comic adaptation, yes, but carrying all that angstiness, carrying all that edginess with a little dash of satirical realism. And that's something that perhaps that's why a lot of people are quote unquote underwhelmed with how this series ended. A wise man once said, it's hard to satirize something when the thing you're quote unquote making fun of is genuinely worse and more dangerous in real life, i.e. a megalomaniac with the powers of an absolute, perceiving themselves as a god of our current timeline. Sounds familiar? Well, The Boys has always walked this fine line of idolization, and this cynical sort of questioning, right? Some people would call it the rebellion of humanity. And in that we have two very prominent figures. One, Homelander, the main antagonist of the series, and one, Butcher, a guy who is clearly on the good team, but the way they achieve results, albeit a result is often created with a lack of, let's call it, humanity or moral touch. And I do believe that is something that this show, i.e. the writer, has done very well. The fact that, yes, we're technically on the good side, but who we are and how we act and what this group of misfits and how they sort of have to respond to each other's, let's call it, psychotic tendencies. Although those psychotic tendencies are what make the group, i.e. the boys, and we got a lot of that towards the end of this film as well, or this show as well. I'll just say it right now. One of my favorite characters was the Frenchie character. Like you drop a little bit of Francois in there, you get me going. But B, his storyline and him sort of being like this outside glue to the party. Like a lot of the motions that happened in that storyline could not have been completed without Frenchie. So kind of to see where we ended up with his story, and maybe it's not the greatest way to finish that, but still them being able to go down this certain path of making it very clear that no life is quote unquote sacred, i.e. meaning that at any point somebody could technically drop at this. And that does go both ways, because the whole crutch of the final season is that we have reached a point of obsession, a point of megalomaniacism that has had opportunities to not be addressed and or corrected, but has blown up to a proportion that is literally a threat to our current existence. Does that sound familiar? That's right, I am talking about AIs. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because we see it. I mean, I've seen it in Akira before, but we see it. We've seen it IRL. We've seen the sycophants, and we've seen those parasites who have decided to latch onto this figurehead who is quote unquote representing a sort of power, a presentation of power. What type of power? Well, just look at their database. Just look at their base supporters and tell me that there is not a correlating factor as to why these group of individuals, what do you mean, you people, group up and start deciding that they are being treated unfairly. Again, the universe and all its big wisdom is not a very nice place, not a very fair place, shall you say. Regardless, there are people in this universe that find inspiration, find passion, they find purpose, they find hope. And the big difference between people who are grouped up saying, why me, all this negativity, why you guys gotta treat us this way, rather than trying to understand the opposition, i.e. the other frame of thoughtfulness. And that's where it is, man. That's where it stands. At some point, there had to be a sense of humanity, right? If Butcher was Butcher, and if Butcher just did Butcher's thing, i.e. being the best at what he does, then this show would rapidly turn into a sort of cynical format of our job is to exterminate the opposition and get, what do they call it? Scorch earth operation. And that's a very fine line. Because again, while we are on the good team, while there is a desire to stop these dangerous individuals by perhaps releasing a toxin that would clear a certain population, then that's when it stops being fiction. The sad reality, the real truth, is that the game has always been rigged against us, i.e. the people, i.e. your average Joe. In reality, in the grand scope of the universe, the populace, the human individual, has more in common with themselves in the simple fact that we have created an ecosystem that depends on each other. Symbiosis, if you will. Now the problem starts happening when a certain individual or a certain demographic wants more. More power, more fame, more love, more money, more time. And you can bet your bottom dollar, because that's where all the money goes, that there are certain individuals with the capital, with the factories, with the manufacturing, the structure, that they would dive deep first into finding solutions, i.e. sacrifices, that would extend one's timeline, lifetime. So, to come around and present this superhero show where in reality the people don't have that power. The general populace does not have as much power as your politician, as your Senate, as your House, as your Oval Office representative. A superhuman, if you will. Power granted by the people in hopes that the government and that individual will use that power to protect and provide for their general populace. And hey, if you have in just if you are able to share, to give, then investing in nations outside your border might benefit you, not just because you're trying to buy them out or try to like bribe them or blah blah blah, trying to get a free fucking boat from Saudi Arabia, or sorry, a plane, but that general idea of like, listen, you farmers grow our crops that goes to China and the soybeans are necessary to keep this economy going. Take this extra income that we have been able to produce and use that to help ensure, protect, and maybe even upgrade the farming system or what have you be. If things were just about fairly done, then maybe there wouldn't be so much saltiness between these perceived sides of colors and fake parties where it's clear more than ever with corruption rampant and certain people using their power to harm citizens rather than to protect and or invest or believe in something more than your single timeline. Then yeah, it gets a little underwhelming because I can only assume that most Americans, if not most humans on this green earth, are pretty tired. So, did the show have a bad ending? That's subjective in my opinion, because to be fair, the comic book's ending is even worse, believe it or not. So for the group of people over at Amazon, over at Sony, that banded together and decided to write this original anime ending, then yeah, it felt a little rushed. Yeah, some things didn't necessarily make logical sense. And yeah, my favorite character died. But for what we have, for what stories are used for in our culture, for what role a popular TV show with a pop for what role a pop culture show has and the responsibility that it carries with, say, the messaging, or just a certain writer who had a simple statement. People are predictable. And he wrote something to lay it out. So, is The Boys next Simpsons in sort of like prophecy? Well, not necessarily. Because again, people are fairly simple. And the simplest type of person in this universe is the person that only thinks about themselves. So, with all that being said, man, this show had a lot of heart in it. Originally, I wasn't really into the Brian Campbell's character, Huey, little Huey, because it's Petite Huey, and then you put this fucking potato. But it always kind of felt weird that this guy who like has quote unquote frame, in my opinion, to actually do something about the situation, doesn't really stand up for himself, or not just necessarily stand up for himself, but doesn't really have the drive to believe in his self, his outcomes and his own beliefs. But as you see the years pass by, because it has been years for us in the real world, and as you see sort of the events that character has had to go through to get to a point where, yeah, entertainment and entertainment camps do a number on the mental situation. So to get this character to go through this whole change did feel a little bit sudden. I really wish we saw more of that character development, as that Huey character is supposed to directly interact and represent the general audience. I would have loved to see how that sort of formation came, or like what choice caused him to finally start, quote unquote, talking back to Butcher. Because something that is underrated in this, in my humble opinion, is the message of fatherhood, right? We have Homelander, who was essentially created in the lab, but who had a surrogate father who used him, created him to be this image. And then we have Soldier Boy, which is Homelander's technical biological father, that did not want to have any interaction with him. And you see that sort of reflect on him. To finally come around to Homelander having his own son, and how Homelander's relationship is less of you be who you need to become, grow and learn and adapt in your own manner so you can be your person. And rather than having the ability to do that for a child, he immediately starts to try to replicate his self in this child, simply because DNA means and is more of an analytic to him than a human emotion. And yeah, I thought that was kind of deep, man. To see it all kind of laid out. Obviously there's a bit of commentary in there. I don't know if the author has like anything to say about that, but it was interesting to see, man. It was pretty like sad because it's real. If you want to step back for a second, if you want to lay it out real quick. Apparently, receiving a small loan of $1 million is not emotional love. Because we have an orange orangutan, a superpowered, lawfully superpowered individual in the Oval Office who, if you really just do the math, it's really obvious why they are the way they are, why they pursue growth, the desire of wanting for the sake of wanting more. Because that abandonment, those feelings left behind by a neglected father, where money was not enough to fill the gap, but it was a interesting substitution that he would latch onto like a baby holding his mother's tit. And that's where we leave it at. A boy shielded by the powers of God. So, when you look at this, when you look at Homelander, when you see the final scene happen, and you see people start complaining, you see Elon Musk reply on Twitter, "Oh, pathetic," towards replying to Homelander's final scene. To me, it's like watching two trains slowly come to a collision. The fact that you can see the math from a distance, all you needed was a catalyst to show you who this person really was. And as a wise man once said, take the armor away, what are you? Billionaire, philanthropist, playboy, millionaire. Billionaire, sorry. Well, we took it all away from him. We took the shield, we took the power, we took his pride, and we took his ambition. And what was left but a mere sniveling child crying about how unfair this world was to him. A small loan of $1 million, and you couldn't fucking open a taco truck. Well, that's where we live it. Because while the boys did feel rushed towards the ending, and unfortunately, I can only assume that there was somebody out there reviewing the script going like, wait a minute. I will have to give them credit where credit's due. The fact that they went for it, the fact that Daredevil tried it too, and the fact that these guys had the same idea. They say life imitates art. Again, of course, you know, South Park out there doing their thing, but when the life is as bleak as this person wants it to be, then yeah, it gets a little bit hard to swallow that entertainment is just another form of reflection in the mirror. So, for Elon Musk and everyone out there who was shocked, quote unquote, at Homelander's response to his finale, I'd say wake the fuck up, samurai. We got a city to burn. And Elon Musk, we're coming, baby. We're fucking coming for you. So, with all that being said, I liked it. You know, it's a little bit rough. I'm not usually a guy that likes super like nasty or like very like what's the word? Offensive language, even though you're literally talking to this guy, I know who I am. But when you get Carl Urban, i.e. Johnny Cage from Mortal Kombat 2, going like, "Oi, got a wink of them, mate," and you know, you gotta let the guy live a little. Live and let live is what I say. As long as you're not hurting people, unless hurting people is exactly what needs to be done. So, with all that being said, I like The Boys. I know it's a little bit not great the way it ended, but in all honesty, I do feel like they stuck the landing in terms of the message and the story they're trying to give us, provide to us. And if that is a little too close to home, then hey man, so be it. That just means that we have a lot of work to do. And by God, by peace, by love, and by understanding, I really do hope that we can look back at this finale and laugh at how close it was to being that bad. But somehow, some way, somewhere, we made it out all right. And that, ladies and gentlemen, like Carl Urban's unbreakable hope, like a real man providing stability in the waves, in the turmoil of the ocean's waves. That's real. That's real paternal fatherhood instincts right there. So, with that being said, be a man. Don't be a boy. But if you're a woman, just be you. Like, I don't know. Be nice. Be kind. And rewind. So, until then, take care. Go check it out. I hope that you enjoyed this wonderful ride of The Boys as much as I did. And I'd like to say I look forward to what comes next, like in terms of like if they're gonna do the spin-off for Soldier Boy, or if they're gonna try to adapt some sort of new version of like spiritual successor of The Boys. But it's a little creepy out there. It's a little scary. So hopefully things get better before we're able to make fun of the situation again. So, with all that being said, go check it out. Go have fun. Sony, Amazon, really rocking the boat out there, huh? I like it. Thanks for watching. Ciao. Matane.